You know what I should do, Pops?
Good evening, and welcome to another reading edition of Dante's Divine Comedy. We are now in Book 1, Chapter 4. So let's get started. Okay. The title of this chapter is The First Circle, Limbo, Virtuous Pagans and the Unbaptized. The four poets, Homer, Horace, Ovid, and Lucan, the noble castle of philosophy. Broke the deep lethargy with my head a heavy thunder, so that I upstarted like to a person who by force is wakened. And round about I moved my rested eyes, uprisen erect, and steadfastly I gazed to recognize the place wherein I was. True is it that upon the verge I found me of the abysmal valley dolorous, that gathers thunder of infinite ululations. Obscure, profound it was, and nebulous, so that by fixing on its depths my sight, nothing whatever I discerned therein. Let us descend now into the blind world, began the poet, pallid utterly. I will be the first, and thou shalt second me. And I, who of his colour was aware, said, How shall I come if thou art afraid, who art wont to be a comfort to my fears, and he to me. The anguish of the people who are below here in my face depicts that pity which for terror thou hast taken. Let us go on, for the long way impels us. Thus he went in, and thus he made me enter the foremost circle that surrounds the abyss. There, as it seemed to me from listening, were lamentations none, but only sighs that tremble made the everlasting air. And thus arose from sorrow without torment, which the crowds had, that many were and great, of infants and of women and of men. To me the Master good, thou dost not ask what spirits these, which thou beholdest are? Now will I have thee know, ere thou go farther, that they sinned not, and if they merit had, 'tis not enough because they had not baptism, which is the portal of the faith thou holdest. And if thou were before Christianity, in the right manner that adored not God, and among such as these am I myself. For such defects, and not for other guilt, lost are we, and are only so punished, that without hope we all live on in desire. Great grief seized on my heart when this I heard, because some people of much worthiness I knew, who in that limbo were suspended. Tell me, my master, tell me, thou my lord, began I with desire of being certain of that faith which o'ercometh every error. Came any one by his own merit hence, or by another's, who was blessed thereafter? And he who understood my covert speech replied, I was a novice in this state, when I saw hither come a mighty one, with sign of victory incoronate. Hence he drew forth the shade of the first parent, and that of his son Abel, and of Noah, of Moses the lawgiver, and the obedient Abraham patriarch, and David king Israel, with his father and his children, and Rachel, for whose sake he did so much. And others many he made them blessed, and thou must know the earlier than these never were in any human spirit saved. We ceased not to advance because he spake, but still were passing onward through the forest. The forest, say I, O thick crowded ghost. Not very far as yet our way had gone this side of the summit, when I saw a fire that overcame a hemisphere of darkness. We were a little distant from it still, but not so far that I in part discerned not the honorable people held that place. O thou who honorest every art and science, who may these be which such great honor have, that from the fashion of the rest it parts them. And he to me, the honorable name that sounds of them above there in thy life, wins grace in heaven, so advances them. In the meantime a voice was heard by me. All honor be to the preeminent poet. His shade returns again that was departed. After the voice had ceased and quiet it was, 4 mighty shades I saw approaching us. Semblance had they nor sorrowful nor glad. To say to me began my gracious master, him with that falchion in his hand behold, who comes before thee 3, even as their lord. That one is Homer, poet sovereign. He who comes next is Horace, the satirist. The third is Ovid, and the last is Lucan. Because to each of these with me applies that name that solitary voice proclaimed. They do me honor, and in that do well. Thus I beheld assemble the fair school of that lord of the song, preeminent whoever the others like an angel soars. When they together had discoursed somewhat, they turned to me with signs of salutation, and on beholding this my master smiled. And more of honor still, much more they did me, and that they made me one of their own band, so that the 6th was I, mine so much wit. Thus we went on as far as the light, things saying 'tis becoming to keep silent, as was the saying of them where I was. We came unto a noble castle's foot, 7 times encompassed with lofty walls, defended round by a fair rivulet. This we passed over even as firm ground, though portals 7 I entered with these sages, we came into a meadow of fresh verdure. People were there with solemn eyes and slow, of great authority in their countenance. They spake but seldom and with gentle voices. Thus we withdrew ourselves upon one side, into an opening luminous and lofty, so that they all of them were visible. Their opposite upon the green enamel were painted out to me the mighty spirits, whom to have seen I feel myself exalted. I saw Electra with companions many, mongst whom I knew both Hector and Aeneas, Caesar in armor with gerfalcon eyes. I saw Camilla and Penthesilea on the other side, and saw the king Latinus, who with Lavinia his daughter sat. I saw that Brutus who drove Tarquin forth, Lucretia, Julia, Marcia, and Cornelia, and saw alone apart the Saladin. When I had lifted up my brows a little, the master I beheld of those who know sit with his philosophic family. All gaze upon him, and all do him honor. There I beheld both Socrates and Plato, who never heard before the others stand. Democritus, who puts the world on chance. Diogenes, Anaxagoras, Thales, Zeno, Empedocles, and Heraclitus. Of qualities I saw the good collector, hight Discorides, and Orpheus saw I, Tully and Livy, and moral Seneca. Euclid, Geometrician, and Ptolemy, Galen, Hippocrates, Avicenna, Averroes, who the great comment made. I cannot all of them portray in full, because so drives me onward the long theme, that many times the word comes short of fact. The sixfold company into divides another way to sapient guide conducts me forth from the quiet to the air that trembles, and to a place I come where nothing shines. So as you can see in chapter 4 of the Inferno, Dante starts writing about famous poets and writers from Greek and Roman times. So, just like it was at that point in time, education is available, but only if you're male and only if you come from a certain class of standing and or station. Now, thank God things have changed, and now it's 2020. But as you read in this chapter, you see that Dante enters the first level, limbo, which is where you go to await judgment. And from there, he moves on into actual hell. Please find me on Facebook at Poe Hunter. Send me a friend request. I will accept it. We can discuss your points of view and your own literal translation of the text. I used to hate going to school and them telling me there's only one translation. No, everybody's going to interpret the writing differently, so there are several translations and understandings. I would love to hear yours on Facebook. Also, please remember to subscribe to this YouTube channel, like it, and also interact with other people on the Facebook page as well. Remember, this YouTube channel and the Facebook page were made to promote reading, literacy, and a love of classical literature. And always remember that this YouTube channel is sponsored by All Saints Body Love. Until next time, keep reading and have a wonderful day.